Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Walk. Following on from episode 12, where we spoke a lot about pressure and how it always goes somewhere and usually leaks out sideways into areas of your life that you don't want it to. I thought I would touch on something else that I've been thinking about lately, which does come from pressure and probably from reflecting a lot on pressure, but that is the notion or the ideology that the man you are is the man that your children are watching, and you are the role model that they are looking up to. And I think that applies to all parents, but especially as a man with sons, you're the one that they're looking up to on how to be a man, how to treat a woman. Um, they see the love that you show towards your wife and the love that she gives back and how protected she feels and love she feels. And I don't have a daughter, but I would assume that you want to be the man that your daughter ends up settling down with. And I mean that as in you want her to settle down with a man with morals who can emotionally regulate his emotions well, and also protect her and be kind and nurturing and caring. And then for me, there was a moment that changed everything. And it wasn't that too long ago where Sol was probably 2.5, maybe. He was 5 this year. So he went about 2.5 and he said to my wife, "I want a new dada." And it hurt. It hurts me now thinking about it. And it wasn't because that he didn't love me. It's just that I was angry at the world. I was carrying a lot of resentment. I was carrying a lot of pressure. I was traveling far distances for work, back and forth. Our dynamic, that doesn't work for us at all. Because of the care that Sol needs, and now having 2 children, and my wife's extremely stretched thin in emotionally, being able to control so much and deal with so much. So that wasn't working for us. I was carrying so much pressure about what I'm doing for work. I'm missing out on time with the kids. I'm not seeing the kids. This isn't the life I wanted. And there were so many things going on in my mind at that time. And but it made me realize something that didn't sit really well with me, and that was the fact that um, I wasn't home like I needed to be, and when I was home, I wasn't present. And what it made me feel was quite uncomfortable, because I started realizing that our kids are watching every single thing that we do, every single thing. So the change in tone, um, the change in dynamic, change in your health, everything. They notice absolutely every single thing that we are doing. Um, and most of us think we're just raising kids. I thought that for a very long time. It was just like, this is what it is, and it's chaos at sometimes and it's good the other times. But the truth is, we're actually modeling adulthood, and we're modeling it for them to work towards and strive to have when they get older, that level of adulthood and that level of comfortability and care. Um, and it's crazy how much kids do mirror who we are. Like in our house, Sol copies me. Sometimes I wish he didn't, because there's things I've said. Like I remember one day at night time, I was really, really tired, really exhausted. We just had Atlas. Atlas wasn't like sleeping as a baby, a newborn. Uh, Sol was like getting used to Atlas being around. It was this crazy period of time. And we just gotten to sleep, and then Sol's like, "Oh, I need to do a wee." And he climbs off the bed when he needs to do a wee, right? And I just remember, like, I didn't mean to. It was just like, you're so tired, you're so exhausted. As I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to, and fathers. And I just went, "Oh, fuck." And then about, I don't know, a week later, my parents came and visited, and he's like, "Nanny and Poppy, do you know the other night, Dad had just said in bed really loud, he just went, 'fuck,' and he yelled it." And I was like, "Man, don't copy me with that." Like, you can't hide it from your kids, but, it's an example that they mirror every single thing that we do. Um, like if we say shit, now if Atlas runs away, Sol says shit. My mum's got a bad habit of saying shit, just like I do. We're very similar. And he copies everything we do. He copies every single term that people use. Like, my dad has a habit of saying Jesus, and now Sol walks around and goes Jesus, and I'm like, "Oh man, like, I don't want you walking around saying that, especially not in this day and age. Like, be who you are, say what you want to say, but it can get you in trouble with the wrong crowd, if you know what I mean." So, and then from that, then Atlas copies him. So like when Sol has an outburst or has a meltdown, then Atlas all of a sudden magically out of nowhere needs to start having an outburst and a meltdown. And he copies exactly what Soul does. If Soul throws something, Atlas throws something. Soul sort of lashes out and sometimes can be physical. Um, Atlas then does the same thing when he's angry. So they absorb far more than they listen to with instruction. So they really do absorb how we act and how we react to things. And yeah, they take on a lot more than you and I or anyone would understand. So we really need to work, heavily, and it's taken me a long time to work heavily on it because I'm very much a, buck this and this bloke's a good cunt. And I'm very much one of those people. That's how I talk. Like on this podcast, I try to keep it not fake. I'm just trying to keep it that borderline professional and that borderline being myself. Because if it was fuck this, fuck that, it would be. But I think a lot of people would want to listen. But at the same time, like I do pride myself on being a professional, and I'm in those settings a lot of the times. But around your kids, you can't really say your F's and Q's all the time. So what they start to mirror, though, like what I've noticed is your tone, your patience, your anger, your emotional energy, all these things, they mirror. And like I said, it's not because you're a bad parent or a bad person. And you've only known that for so long. Like when I had a Soul, I was 29. So for 29 years, I could be who I wanted to be. And a lot of that time I wasn't. We've spoken about that before, but like over, towards the end, coming towards being a parent, I was probably really coming into who I wanted to be. Well, I thought I wanted to be at the time, but I didn't realize that it needed more work. But I sort of thought I was being the person I wanted to be. And, but you've really got to like work on yourself. And I feel like parenthood really, exposes a lot of the things that we don't do well, and it exposes a lot of things that we've probably held in or things that we don't process really well. And then we're not just, like I said, raising children. You're modeling adulthood, and I'll keep saying that. Like you are modeling for these children how it is to be an adult. So every reaction, every moment of patience, every moment of frustration, they are literally watching absolutely everything. And if you've got a child like mine who is very, when I say mine, I mean Soul, the older one, even Atlas, but Soul's very intellectual, very switched on. It's like he's wired different up here. He's so smart, that boy. He notices everything and takes everything on board. And it's about probably working on ourselves. We're probably working on, I mean, with boys especially, it's probably, working on our masculinity, I think. And for me, masculinity, I've touched on it previously in a previous episode, early days, about what it sort of looked like growing up. But for many of us and many of the men that I've spoken to, and young men as well, that, are sort of coming up through the construction ranks that I'm working with and stuff, for them, it's sort of masculinity is really modeled around hard work, long hours, providing, getting on with it, and bottling emotions. And it's the fucking furthest thing from, strength back in the day for masculinity meant pushing through. Failure didn't really feel like an option. And there was always pressure to be the rock and the dependable one. And there's always that need to be the one that everyone could rely on. And I feel that a lot of the time too. Hence why I've started this, because it allows me to reach a vast number of people, without, having to sit down individually and speak to each one, because as a parent and life's busy, you don't get the time. So being able to do this is being able to share a lot of the thoughts that people do come to me for. And, fatherhood doesn't just raise children, it exposes parts of you that still needs healing. And that's nothing truer. It's exposed so much of me, so much of what I need to work on and heal. And I say that because it's the patterns that we carry, are the patterns that our children inherit. And I've spoken about that before. Like you don't want to bottle so much up that it puts it on them, that in turn they need to then work on themselves, and they need to unpack so much when they get older. So it's really about working internally on things that are bothering us, things that are affecting us, and making sure that they don't inherit those patterns. Because I'm what I've come to see and come to understand is a lot of people my age and our generation and stuff have inherited so much from their parents because their parents didn't have the tools or didn't have the time to really work on themselves and focus on themselves because that's what they were taught from the generations before them. Like there's a Gary Vee thing that I was watching a while ago, where he talks about being angry, people being angry at their parents and holding on to that narrative. And he says this thing that goes like, "Well, fuck your grandparents then." And when I first heard it, I was like, "Geez, like that's a bit excessive." But then he doesn't mean it in a way. He explains it. He doesn't mean it in a way of like you hate them. He just means it in a way that your grandparents created your parents. So whatever they didn't work on, they passed down to your parents. Your parents didn't work on it, it gets passed down to you. And so what his kind of idea about it is, well, you could blame your parents, you could blame your grandparents, you could blame your great grandparents, you could blame your great grandparents, you could keep going. And what I've come to realize is we are now a generation of parents and fathers who are trying to break that pattern, really trying to break generational patterns and curses. I call them, would say curses, for the better of the future generations. And what comes with trying to break those patterns is controlling your energy and the way you deal with things. And the one thing I've noticed in my experience as a parent is like I've said before, how much my son Soul, especially when I talk about my kids, it's not only about Soul purely because Atlas is that small. And he notices it. I think he does. I can feel it. There was a few weeks ago where I sort of changed my tone. My voice went a little bit higher. I didn't like yell or nothing. Just a change in tone that Atlas was so hesitant of me. And I was like, well, I need to work on that because I don't want him being fearful of me, but I also don't want him to think that he can just, get away with stuff. And, they need to learn that there's a baseline level of respect and everything. But, it's crazy to me how much Soul notices probably well before I do that something's wrong. And they understand emotional energy before they understand language. And so the whole house feels it, especially when you're overwhelmed, then the atmosphere changes. As we spoke about previously, your pressure then starts to leak sideways, goes into relationships that you don't want it to go into. And I'll have times where Soul will ask me, like, what's wrong, Dada? What are you feeling? And then he's got this, I mean, it's cute and I love that he says it, but it's starting to become a shit habit where he constantly says, I love you, Dada. If he knows that I'm not feeling great or if he knows that he's done something that I'm not happy about, he says it as if like, that's okay, everything's sorted. And don't get me wrong, I love that he tells me he loves me. So I don't want people to take that wrong, but I want him to say it because he genuinely feels it, not because it's trying to repair something, because he shouldn't have to repair anything for me. I should be able to repair it myself. And also be able to teach him that you can make a mistake, you can stuff up, but you can also repair it. And like I said, it does break my heart that he says that because I'm kind of like, you don't need to carry that emotional weight at such a young age, mate. Like it's okay for Dada to feel the way he's feeling, and it's okay for Mama to feel the way she's feeling. It's okay for this person to be that way. It's okay for you to feel angry and frustrated and annoyed at people. But you don't need to tell them that you love them so that they hopefully get on with it and move forward. And I've said that to him a few times. Like he'll say that to me and he'll go, Dada, how are you feeling now? Are you still frustrated? And I'll say to him, Soul, I love you when I'm annoyed. I love you when I'm angry. I love you when I'm frustrated. I love you when you're angry. I love you when you're frustrated. I love you when you're sad. I don't ever stop loving you. It's just I'm annoyed about this, or it's okay for you to feel annoyed about that. And kids really, they shouldn't feel responsible for fixing their parents' emotions. They should just be able to feel safe and not responsible for us whatsoever. And as I've touched on before, this all comes from probably trying to break generational patterns. And by breaking the generational patterns, how that looks for us and how that looks for me personally, is, as I've touched on in the episode prior, I'm working with a coach. I am trying my best to do reading, which hasn't really taken off as yet, but I'm trying to read more. I'm trying to be present more, trying to follow passions more, trying to really find things that bring me joy again. Be present with my kids is a massive one. Really be intentional with the time I spend with them, but then the time I do work on this podcast, be intentional with that. There's a lot that I'm trying to do at the moment, and I've spoken before about small intentional shifts. It started as small intentional shifts. So the small intentional shifts were like, if you're feeling overwhelmed, just step out of the room. Just step out of the room. Tell my wife I'm stepping out of the room for a sec. Just give me 5. um, and don't get me wrong, it's not always perfect. It's not always, like I've said before, excuse me, it's not always Hollywood. Because I've read even recently, we had a moment where I said to my wife, like, I don't really want to talk to any of you, all 3 of you. I don't want to talk to you. And it was like, not a thing of like, I don't love you guys anymore. I hate you. I don't want to. It was just a thing of, I don't want to talk to any of you. I just need some space. Just give me 5, 10 minutes. And she did. She facilitates that space. It was hard for her to hear. And I get it. And I apologized. I said it probably came out wrong, but yeah, it's a work in progress, I think, for everyone. You're never going to fully master it, but it's definitely something you need to work on as much as you can. There's parts of me that I'm always trying to improve. It's my temper. I try not to lose my temper in my family ever. And that's probably a bad thing, holding the temper in, because then it does sort of not outburst, but it sort of comes out then to my wife about like, I'm not happy about this, I'm not happy about that. And she must think, fuck, he hates life or he hates us, but it's not that. It's just, that's something I need to work on. It's probably the temper side of things. The negative self-talk is a huge one. Yeah, that's a massive one for me to be working on, because I go straight into that. I'll go straight into like, I actually said it a couple of nights ago to my wife. I said, I talk about all this stuff on the podcast because I genuinely believe in it, genuinely feel it, believe in it and feel it and think it, and I write this stuff down. But then at home, it's so hard sometimes to put into practice because you're so overwhelmed and stretched thin, and and I said, I feel like an imposter sometimes. And then I start talking to myself. I'm like, well, there's no point doing the fucking podcast if you're not going to practice what you preach. And so, like, it's just more showing that we're all human at the end of the day. Another big one for me is probably my body image insecurities. I've had them since I was young. I was bullied quite heavily for being a big kid and an overweight kid. And having the camera on me is a huge thing. Like, I look at myself when I'm doing this and talking, and I think, man, like, your chin looks huge, or you look puffy in the cheeks, or like you look like you got your gut sticking out, or you got love handles. And it's probably, I always wear black. I mean, I'm wearing the walk merch that we got done, the hat and the shirt. So if anyone wants one, let me know. But yeah, like, back onto what what I'm trying to improve, like the body image stuff is huge. Like, I always wear black because it's slimming. And so lately I've been trying to wear, like navy blue or olive green, and trying to dress differently or wear different types of black. Don't just stick to a tee and shorts. It'll be like wear a polo or something, and just feel comfortable in your body. I think that's because of the injury and not moving my body as much too. I've just felt very blah. I suppose that's how I'd explain it. It's just very blah, very low self-esteem at the moment, but slowly get it back. And then the other thing I'm trying to manage as well is my stress. I think that's coming from a lot of a space where I don't know what I'm doing. I feel lost with work, career. Do I focus so heavily on this podcast and really give this a red hot crack, and hopefully it takes me somewhere, or do I go down the other avenue and just worry about career because it's safe and offers a lot of stability? But when I go down that path, I start thinking about the conversation I had with the dad coach, Aaron, and he said to me, you just got to go and do it. And sometimes you need people in your corner who are just as batshit crazy as you are and back you. And so that's why, yeah, I constantly like this space here. This is Bulldog Studios in Windsor. Awesome facility. They do stuff in music production. They do stuff for DJs. They've got DJ rooms. They've got this podcast room. And so, like, I'm actively trying to find spaces so I can facilitate conversations. I've got guests coming up. I've got a couple of mates to talk to. I've got another mental health coach that I'm going to get on, have a chat with him. So there's a lot, doing. But I find doing all that helps me manage my stress because it's filling my cup. But yeah, the truth of it all for me is really simple, and that's if we don't heal the parts, or if I don't heal the parts of me that struggle, my children inherit them. And I won't allow that to happen because no disrespect to my parents or mates' parents or people's parents I've spoken to, but that's what's happened to all of us. We've inherited so much of them that they never healed. And now we have to heal that side of ourselves and also work on breaking the pattern. And it's extremely hard. And fatherhood really does force you, and parenthood really does force you to confront yourself, not so that you can be perfect, but just so you can be better than you were the day before. And I think that's all we're trying to do as parents and fathers is be better than yesterday. Each day we're just trying to be better. I've been thinking, we did an episode earlier on about the father that I want to be, and the father I want my kids to be. I did an open letter to the kids, and what are the things that I do love that my sons have absorbed from me, because I do feel like in order to grow, you need to be a sponge. And I heard that term one day from a boss that I had, and he said, you need to act as a sponge. You need to, yeah, like suck in all the information. And then when, like a sponge never goes fully dry when you squeeze it. This is how I've sort of then uh, added to that sort of analogy of being a sponge. Is like when you squeeze a sponge, not all of it, not the whole thing doesn't go dry. It removes the excess. So be a sponge, absorb everything, but then really squeeze out the excess that you don't need and keep the what embodies that sponge. Um, and the things that my kids have got from me and have taken on from me really have been confidence, which is weird because I don't have a lot of confidence. I come across as quite a confident guy, but like I said, with the body image stuff and that I'm not overly confident in that regard. But what I am confident with is having a conversation, talking like this. So I'm so proud that especially Sol can hold those conversations with people and have those, the intellectual ability to be able to facilitate that space for people. And he's only young, but it's something that I look at and I go, that's amazing that he can do that. I suppose it's their sense of humor. I love that they've both absorbed that from me. Like I try to, a lot of people, are like structured play and do this, and I'm just like, I'm very much like, just have fun, like have that carefree play, go outside, get dirty. Um, Make up words, tell jokes, do all of that. Like, you got to have fun as a kid. And but that's something that I've definitely, yeah, I have really pride myself on, is that my kids have taken that from me and taken that on board. Um, I think their determination, especially Atlas, he's so determined to do stuff. Like it's like you like I've always been that person. It's like, well, you can't do that. It's like, well, give it a crack. It's like this podcast. A lot of people are like, not going to work. Won't happen. And I was just like, I'm going to have a crack. Like I enjoy it. I enjoy talking about this stuff. I'm really passionate about it. And I've always been determined to do it. So, then yeah. So like Atlas's determination, something that I'm so proud he's absorbed from me. Um, and they're the things that I want them to when they get older go, shit, that's what dad gave us. He gave us determination, he gave us growth, he gave us emotional intelligence, he gave us the courage to speak honestly and openly with him and mum. And that's really what I want from them, because I feel like a lot of us probably didn't have that. And again, it's nothing against our parents. I actually had a really good conversation with my dad the other day about this whole coach thing, and he goes, "Oh, why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because I said, it's no disrespect to you, it's no disrespect to mum, it's no disrespect to anyone." I said, but like, you guys are quite biased. You don't really give advice. You sort of just go the easy path, the stable path. And I said, but it's nothing wrong with that. That's just who you guys are. And that's what you do. And yeah, my dad was amazing about it. He's like, I think it's great that you're doing that, because he goes, you're right. We just tell you what almost we think you want to hear, not what you need to hear. So I thought that was fantastic, to be able to have that conversation with him. And he's always been like that, Dad. Like if he's unsure, he'll just say, I don't know. Like with my music stuff, he's always like, so how do you grow that fan base? Or what would it cost for this? And I'd be like, and he goes, I'm not asking because I want to hold anything against you or whatever, because I'm just asking because I'm curious to know. I'm really curious to know how that works in that space. So, um, but the one thing that I want my children when they grow up or get older, and I think a lot of us want, is for them to take from us is love. I know for me it is. I want them to love themselves the way that I could never love myself. I want them to love their partner the way that I do love my wife. And I want them to love life the way that they should and they deserve to love it because I haven't loved it a lot of the time. And that's, yeah, definitely one thing that I would love for them to be able to do is just love life and and just enjoy it. Um, like I said, I want them to love the way that I love their mum. I want them to love the way that I show up for them. And I want them to show up for their family in the same way. I want them to love um, the way that people treat them, and also love people the way that people deserve to be loved and treat them the way they deserve to be treated. That's a massive one. I think respect isn't something that is given, it's earned. And you only get that by loving people and caring for people and really being um, in people's corner and helping them. So I want my boys to really do that. I don't want them to think to mistaken softness for weakness. I think the strongest men can sometimes be the softest. So yeah, that's really what I want them to take away from that. And the relationship I want with them is really simple. I want them to know that they can talk to me about anything with no judgment, no fear, and just honesty. And that's probably because at times, again, a lot of us weren't given that space because either they didn't have the time or, I always think about people that I've spoken to who were like, I was too worried to talk to my parents because I was worried that I'd get a backhand or they would question what I'd done or made me feel so small. And I've touched on it before. It's like me talking to my mother about work. Like I love my mum, but I try and talk to her about stuff that was affecting me, and it just seems to always gets flipped back onto her. And that's very common. Like it happens with a lot of people. It's not just her, so it's not a stab at her and an attack on her at all, but it's um a lot of people I speak to, they're like, well, I can't speak to my mum or I can't speak to my dad because, they just flip it back on themselves. Um, so like, I really want my kids to know that I'm not going to do that. I watched a really cool podcast not too long ago. I can't remember the name of it. I feel terrible. I think the guy's Instagram name's like Jan Parkins or something. He's this dad who does these skits. It's funny as fuck. Um, but he had this Islander bloke on, and if you looked at him from face value, you'd be like, big bloke, probably scary. Those Islander families. Like I grew up in New Zealand, so I know what it's like. It's very they're very hard nut at home, very hard style of parenting. Not all of them, but majority of them, and so they get a bad rap. But this guy, he literally says like he's got a safe word with his daughters, oh his kids. It's marshmallow. So when they say marshmallow to him, he's like, I know that I can't judge them. I can't whatever, just create a safe space and let them talk. Even if they're talking about something that he goes like is driving me insane and I just want to fucking lose my mind. He create a safe space for them. And I thought that was really, really beautiful because that's all we want. We want our kids to be open and honest because like look at the generations of us who probably, like I said, weren't given that time and that space. And now look at us trying to fix everything. Um, yeah, our kids don't need perfect parents or perfect fathers. They just need present ones. And the one thing that I have learned throughout my journey in fatherhood thus far is presence outweighs everything. And I'll say that again. Presence outweighs everything. Be present at home. Be present with your kids. You're going to feel guilty when you miss out on time with them. But as long as you're going to feel guilty if you work those extra hours. And trust me, I feel that all the time and I'm always trying to buy time back. But if you're doing it with their best intentions at heart and your family's best intentions at heart, then you can't fail. But don't put the pressure on yourself either. Look after yourself because the way you love yourself is how your children are going to love themselves. So if they see you looking after yourself, they see you in the being healthy, eating healthy, showing positive ways of showing love or positive ways of support for the mother or or your friends or your parents, which is their grandparents. That's what they're going to model themselves around. So, like I said, presence outweighs everything. And if you're someone who's stretched for presence because it's something that you don't have the luxury of at the moment, I guarantee there are points when you can be present. And speaking from experience, I was one of those people who thought, I just don't have the time, but it's being intentional with the time. Even if it's that half an hour, they're going to remember that half an hour where dad didn't check his phone, or where, dad didn't jump on an email or jump on a call or whatever. He was just with us. They're going to remember that more than all the times where he hung out with us for 5 minutes, but then he had to jump on a work call. Someone called him and he stepped out of the room. So, like I said, it is a work in progress. Just for me as well, it is a work in progress. I'm working on it all the time, but yeah, remember that. If I want to take anything away from today, it's that presence outweighs everything. But thank you for tuning in. Like I said, we've got more guests coming up. 3 guests actually. It's a busy couple of weeks. Hopefully, we'll be able to be back in this Bulldog studios and do those recordings, so I can get some nice video content, put some faces to names as well. We've also got the hat and the tee. If anyone is interested, please do reach out. We're also looking at doing hoodies, some stickers, just stuff like that, and it all supports the show. I'm actually trying to work out an idea of maybe trying to align with an organization so that, focusing primarily on men's health and fathers, mental health. So working on trying to align with some organizations so that, whatever is made on those, the merch, I suppose, a profit of that goes to an organization, and the other lot supports the show. Like it's not paying my bills or anything. It's really just to support the show, facilitate spaces like this, and allow these conversations to keep going that I'm hoping are helping people. So, like I said, always feel free to reach out. I'll always get back to people. I'll always have the time for everyone. So yeah, I'm Jake Donnelly, and thank you for listening. This is The Walk.